We're going to start with Ohio State. Aaron, why don't you start us off? How did the 2025 Ohio State Buckeyes do this year?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you look at just the regular season, I mean, it was a masterclass, right? It was dominance followed by, sadly, a postseason heartbreak. Ryan Day, I feel like in a regular season, he did what he had to do. He finally silenced the Michigan critics, finally broke that streak of embarrassment. And then when they got into conference play in December and January, they hit a wall, right? Um, it left fans wondering if the offensive line will ever catch up to the talent at the skill positions, and if they're, I don't know, ever going to get to that promised land again.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So yeah, we'll start like our typical report cards with the expected record versus the actual record. Obviously, the year before they won the national title with 2 losses, but this year most sports books and analysts they projected about a 10 regular season. 10 wins during the regular season, excuse me, and then a playoff berth. They went 12-2. So they went 12-0 in the regular season. And then that was the first time since 2019 that they were able to do that. And then they had an 0-2 slide. They lost against Indiana in the Big Ten championship, and then they lost against Miami in the CFP quarterfinals. So we, obviously 12-0 will get you an A+ around here, but with that 0-2 slide near the end, we kind of put them in the A- range. Steven, what do you think? You okay with that grade there?
Yeah, I mean, I'm okay with the grade for Ohio State. I think when you get your quarterback that was a Heisman finalist back, you have Jeremiah Smith. You add their running game, like you cannot give them the grade that that was given. My only And again, keep in mind that, like I stated earlier, I am a Atlanta Falcons fan, so
Sure.
take what I say right now with a grain of salt. But Ohio State bringing Arthur Smith doesn't, as an offensive coordinator,
Oh,
doesn't. I think he was replacing uh
Heartline.
Hartline, yeah, who's like I think
Yeah.
he's the head coach now
We're
for
we're gonna
USF.
get into the coaching in a little bit. I was just asking specifically on the record. Would you
Oh,
would you
on the record,
agree on
yes,
the
then
yeah?
yes, I would totally agree. But yeah,
Gotcha.
I have some things to say about the
But
coaching. But
I want to hear it. Let's Aaron hear about coaching first. Let's hear about that grade, and then we'll hear all about Arthur Smith.
Sure, sure. So let's start with the head coach first, right? So Ryan Day, he deserves some massive credit, right? He snapped the losing streak against Michigan, like I mentioned earlier. Dominant regular season finale. Um, of course, you had the slip up at the end, but I don't want to ding him too much because those last 2 losses were against people who made it to the national championship. So can you really ding somebody who's maybe the third best
Third
team,
place.
arguably?
Yeah.
You know. Coordinators, Matt Patricia, we talked about him all year. Number one scoring defense, number one defense in the nation. Like inevitably, probably one of the best like defensive coaches I've seen this year. And then Steven, you alluded to Brian Hartline, right? I don't know what school did he end up going to?
USF,
South Florida. Yeah.
South
yeah.
Florida. Okay, so yeah, he's gonna make some noise down there. Maybe he's gonna have to build up a little bit down there as they're a program that's elevating, but they still got to take that next step to be an elite program. But overall, with what we saw this year, offense we saw them struggle from time to time, but with the defense was just lights out. We're gonna give them a B+. How do you feel? I guess from our grading and what we talked about, Stephen, from their coaching standpoint.
I agree because again, when you have Matt Patricia,
Mm.
you can't argue. You're returning the what he was doing, the way he programmed his defense to be the juggernaut that they were all virtually all season. That in itself, gives you know gives them that B+. I would only take away the plus and a minus only because of, as I alluded earlier, Arthur Smith, right? Like uh, you know, the one thing he is known for is running the ball. He's a very um, run heavy offensive
Scheme.
coordinator.
Yeah.
Even when he was in Atlanta, he's the one that the reason why we have Bijan Robinson. You translate it over to his offensive coordinating roles in with Pittsburgh. they ran the ball a lot, like almost too much. They were in 2 tight end sets, and they would just run, say, "Hey, my guys are bigger and stronger than you. We're gonna run the ball, run the ball down." Now, while
Mm.
that's good, you had Jeremiah Smith, who, like, to me at least, is still the best wide
Yeah.
receiver. Like, I would, I'll bet my money on him being the number 1 pick coming out next year. But now that you have Arthur Smith, I'm like, what does that do to Jeremiah Smith? So
Mm.
it's hard to give them anything less than a B. So I would only flip the
You
plus
think a
to
lot of
minus.
screens and end arounds for Jeremiah Smith this year?
Look, that's what I mean. Look at DK's numbers. Look at wide receivers' numbers before and after Arthur Smith. So it's just
Mm.
the run games and the tight ends are going to see a lot. And I think what they have, is Bo Jackson still coming? Still with the
Yeah, he should be. Yeah, the running back,
yeah.
right?
So
Yeah,
yeah,
Bojack.
I mean
Yeah,
Bo Jackson, he'll eat a lot. He'll
yeah.
get probably like 1,200 plus receiving yards, and some no name tight end is gonna get all the touchdowns. So I
Nice.
hope Jeremiah Smith is good at blocking, because that's what his future is gonna look like.
Gotcha. All right, yeah, let's perfect segue into offense and defense. We gave an A minus here. Offense, it left a little left to be yet to be desired. On paper, they were explosive. Obviously, they have Jeremiah Smith, one of the best players in the country, if not the best offensive weapon. Now, they averaged 33.4 points per game. The unit, the offense as a whole, the offensive line was an issue, and that really reared its head near the end of the season, but especially in the playoffs. The entire offense kind of vanished because of the holes in the offensive line. They only scored 10 points in the Big Ten game and 14 in the Cotton Bowl. So that's going to bring their average down, I believe. And then their defense, I mean, A plus, like you said, Aaron, best scoring defense in the country. They only allowed 9.3 points per game. They held every regular season opponent to 16 points or less. Has not been done since 1975. So that's an A minus there. I think we'll move forward into the best wins and worst losses. So Aaron, why don't you kind of give us a highlight and low light of the Ohio State season from 2025?
Yeah. So they're gonna get a B plus from here, for this category from us. I think best win, undoubtedly the breaking the streak with Michigan. Playing the game and Ryan Day breaking that curse. The worst loss, it's gonna have to be that Big Ten championship. They they came in losing to a Cinderella Indiana team. While the offense, looks completely stagnant, and it was a gut punch that killed their momentum heading into the playoffs. So yeah, they get a B plus there. Steven, I know you're a Georgia Tech fan. You watch a lot of ball in the South. How many games, I guess, did you watch this year? Since Ohio State's so far up north, they're on a totally different TV program. I mean, did you catch many of those here?
No, my Saturdays, especially during uh the collegiate football season, was spent just something was always on.
Yeah.
And when you have YouTube TV, you can put on multiple games at the same time. So I'm one of those guys that have, like, at least at any given Saturday or Sunday, I'm gonna have 4 games on. So I did catch a good bit of Ohio State games.
I wouldn't blame you for not watching. They had a pretty bad schedule this year, Ohio State. I wouldn't blame you if you didn't watch many.
No, I mean it was on, right? Like
Yeah.
when they played um
They played
Penn
Texas
State.
week 1. That was a good. Oh, Penn State. That was a good one.
Yeah, when they played Penn State, I wanted to watch that
Right.
game only because Penn State had fired their coach. I was like,
Yeah.
okay, what is Penn State gonna do coming out the gates? And they came out the gates, like, the first, like, quarter, it looked fine, and then it's like, hey, we're Ohio State.
Yeah.
We're
Flex that muscle.
we're the big guns. But yeah, no, I think the games that you guys listed, with the best one, I definitely think was the Michigan one, because when you have those in-state those rivalries, like, those are always are gonna matter much. You can lose all your games, but if you beat your rival, it's a win in some people's books. And then again, like, the worst loss being that Cinderella lost to Indiana. That was actually one of like the first full Indiana games I've watched, again, because,
Yeah.
like, I didn't want to watch Indiana play lower level teams, but, like, I was like, hey, Ohio State, Indiana coming out of, you know, coming, from the dead to be where they are, I was like, hey, this would be a very good game. So,
Yeah.
no, that was definitely like their worst loss because again, as you alluded, Aaron, it kind of led to any momentum they had to doing a repeat. So
Mhm.
Exposed a lot of holes for that one for them for sure. All right, last topic for Ohio State: portal and preparation for the future. I think we hit the big nail on the head with the offensive coordinator, but let's just talk about the team in terms of roster makeup and stuff. It's been a revolving door, in Columbus. A lot of people going out, a lot of people coming in. So far, Ohio State has lost 31 players to the transfer portal. We got Tegra Shabola, and Quincy Porter, another 5-star recruit. They're gone, but they've had an influx in too. They had a DB from Georgia go up there. They Ryan Day is really focused on the trenches. That was a big flaw for them this year. They recently added a player named Vashawn Washington. He's from Dartmouth, so he's going up to the Ivy League to get his folks. But yeah, and then for looking forward to next year, Julian saying he's going to have Jeremiah Smith. He's going to have Bo Jackson, like you mentioned. He really came onto the scene this year. But yeah, he's really trying to fix up those areas where they were lacking, and so I think he's done a pretty good job. I gave him a B minus. No big splashes this time around. But with all of those grades put together, I'm giving them a final grade of B plus. Anybody disagree with that grade of a B plus for Ohio State?
I think I'm
I
good
think
there.
it's I think it's pretty good. You hit the nail on the head there. I am interested to see how they address their defense because again, like the defense being as good as they were, right? And
Yeah,
and kind of as you alluded to, them going into I'm a firm believer of like if you want to have a good team, the trenches is where you stay at. Defensive line,
for
O
sure.
line.
Yeah, yep.
Like that's something that, and I think it shows in their portal pickups. But when you lose a safety like Caleb Downs, like that's like,
He
and
was
again, he's
almost
going to
another
the league.
defensive lineman. He was almost another defensive lineman.
When you lose a safety like Caleb Downs, like that's a big like loss. But again, like I have firm belief in their in just their defensive scheme and structure that like they'll get that addressed. So yeah, all in agreement with that. But definitely interesting to see how they again address all the key defensive guys that are going to go to the league next year.
Yeah. Now,
Absolutely,
and
absolutely.
I just realized now they have 2 former NFL head coaches or not head coaches, but NFL talent as offensive and defensive coordinator.